Hi, Reddit. I go by Plus here. I was 43 when I finally walked into the courthouse and filed for divorce. After more than 2 decades of marriage to Melissa, 21 years to be exact, I couldn't do it anymore. To the outside world, we looked like your typical stable family. We had a modest home, one daughter, Sophie, who had just turned 19, and photo albums full of smiling moments that told a comforting lie. I worked in software, quiet, predictable work. Melissa worked part-time at a boutique, always friendly to the neighbors, always present at community events. Sophie had just wrapped up her freshman year at college. To anyone looking in, we were a normal, happy household. But when I looked at us, I saw something hollow, a life I no longer recognized. It all started unraveling during a simple spring cleaning session in the garage. I was clearing out clutter when I came across a shoebox hidden beneath old Christmas decorations. Seemed harmless enough. I assumed it held keepsakes, maybe old notes between Melissa and me back when we were young and in love. But the handwriting wasn't mine, and the messages weren't for me. They were written to someone named Jason. The letters were personal, passionate, even graphic at times. Some dated back to 2005, just a year after Sophie was born. I read page after page describing secret meetups, weekend escapes, and feelings that made it very clear Jason believed Sophie was his daughter. That night, I confronted Melissa. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just looked at me with this hollow, defeated expression. When I asked her straight up if Sophie was mine, she paused. Then she said quietly, "I don't know." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed feeling frozen, like my entire life had been built on shifting sand, and someone had just kicked the last support beam out from under it. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. When I told Sophie, she exploded. She screamed that I was destroying the family over a simple rough patch. She called me a coward, said I was the worst father in the world. I didn't argue. I didn't try to make her understand. She didn't know what I had discovered. All she saw was her dad walking away. But behind the scenes, I had already sent in a DNA test. I needed answers. The results came back a week later. 0% chance I was her biological father. Whatever part of me was still intact after reading those letters broke then, and still I didn't tell her. I couldn't bring myself to. I didn't want to rip her world apart the way mine had been. Then, about a month after the divorce was finalized, I got a phone call from Melissa. She was in tears. Jason had been killed in a drunk driving accident. She was hysterical, crying uncontrollably, rambling about how Jason had finally been ready to step up, how they had planned to tell Sophie the truth soon. "What do I do now?" she sobbed. "She'll never forgive me." I didn't have an answer for her, but I knew what I had to do. I called Sophie and asked to meet in person. She agreed, though I could hear the resentment in her voice. We met at a quiet cafe near her college campus. She wouldn't even look at me when I arrived. "What do you want?" she asked coldly. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were all the letters, the paternity results, and a handwritten note I'd written the night before explaining everything. How much I had loved her, how I had raised her as my own, how none of it had ever been her fault, but also how the truth had hollowed me out. She read silently. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope containing the DNA test. Then silence. Thick, choking silence. Eventually, she lifted her head, eyes brimming with tears. "So you're not my dad?" "No," I said softly. "Not by blood." "Why? Why are you telling me now?" "Because you called me the worst father alive, and I needed you to know I wasn't your father at all." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came, just tears. Then she whispered, "I don't know what to say." "There's nothing to say," I replied, standing. "You deserve the truth, and now you have it." She reached out, trying to take my hand, but I gently pulled my hand away, not out of anger, just finality. I had nothing left to give. I looked at her, really looked at her, one last time. The girl I had cradled to sleep, the child I stayed up with finishing science projects, the teenager I taught how to drive, the daughter I danced with in the living room during thunder and lightning. And I said softly, "Take care of yourself, Sophie." Then I walked out. It's been nearly a year now. I moved a couple towns over, started fresh with a new apartment, a different job, and a daily routine that doesn't echo with memories. Melissa never reached out again. Sophie hasn't contacted me, either. I still think of her, especially on Sundays. But I don't regret leaving. I gave everything I had, my loyalty, my love, my entire identity as a father. For 19 years, they let me live a lie. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm just free. And sometimes, that's the only thing left worth fighting for. The first few months were brutal. Not because I miss Melissa. Those feelings had withered long ago. And not even because I miss Sophie in the way you might think. It was more abstract than that. I miss what she represented. I miss the shared routines. Saturday pancakes. Her horrible attempts at playing guitar when she was 12. The way she used to sneak up and hug me while I was doing dishes. The silly nicknames. The little jokes only we understood. But more than any of that, I miss who I was when I thought I was her dad. Because when the truth comes out, it doesn't just take away the people. It takes away the version of you that loved them without question. For a while I was empty. I'd wake up, go through motions, stare into my coffee like it held some kind of answer, and drift through my workday like a ghost. I was polite, even friendly, but I didn't let anyone close. How could I? I had spent 20 years building a reality that never actually existed. Then, about 3 months after I walked away, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper. I didn't need to see the name. Her handwriting was instantly recognizable. Asterisk, Dad. I don't even know what to say. I don't know if you hate me. If you do, I get it. I'm angry too, but not at you. You were always my father. You still are, no matter what biology says. I understand why you left. I probably would have, too. I just wish I had known sooner. I wish Mom had told us both the truth. I love you, and I hope someday you can forgive me for how I reacted, for what I said. You didn't deserve that. Love. Sophie asterisk. I read that letter over and over, at least 10 times. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in the top drawer of my desk. I didn't write her back, not because I didn't love her. I did, fiercely, but sometimes love is enough. Sometimes loving someone means knowing when to let them go, especially when your bond was built on another person's deception. Melissa stole something from both of us, something we can't ever reclaim. As much as I long to fix things, to rewind time, to imagine a different ending where forgiveness washed it all away, I knew that would only reopen wounds still trying to heal. So I started therapy. Quiet sessions, just me and the silence. Most days I struggled to find the words for what 20 years of falsehood had done to me. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I just sat there in silence. Sometimes I spoke for the whole hour, without realizing time had passed. One day, my therapist asked me a question that stuck. If Sophie reached out again and wanted to rebuild, without expectations, without pressure, what would you do? I sat there, thinking. Finally, I said, I'd thank her. I'd tell her she deserved better than what life handed her. And I'd encourage her to live boldly without waiting on me. Because here's the truth that took me months to understand. I was a good father. Maybe not by blood. Maybe not forever. But while I was in her life, I showed up. I loved fully. I gave my whole heart. And that matters. Even if she never calls again. Even if nobody remembers. I was a father. And I don't need the title back to know that it was real. These days, life is quiet. I live near a peaceful lake in a small, cozy apartment. I go fishing. I read novels. I picked up photography. Something about freezing small, beautiful moments brings me comfort. I joined a local hiking group. It's mostly men around my age, divorced, widowed, starting over. We don't say much on the trails, but the silence feels different in the woods. Lighter. Melissa emailed me once. Just a brief message. She said she was sorry, that she didn't expect me to forgive her, but she hoped I was doing okay. I never replied. Not out of spite. Just because I didn't need revenge. I didn't need more drama. I didn't need closure from her. I had already found it. I gave everything I had to family that never really belonged to me. And in the end, I walked away, not because I was weak, but because I had finally found the strength to stop bleeding for people who watched me suffer and did nothing. That part of my life is finished. Not ruined, not destroyed, just done. I carry the scars with me, but I'm moving forward, alone, but whole.